So, I'm going to tell you guys the story of how I found out that I was pregnant on my 17th birthday. So, basically, I just had this feeling that I was pregnant, but I just felt like I was pregnant because I specifically remember that my boobs were hurting, and TMI, my boobs were hurting so bad, and my boobs don't hurt when I'm on my period. They just never really have. That hasn't been a symptom for me. And I remember my boobs were hurting, and I don't think I was late for my period, but I was like, okay, I missed a couple birth control pills. I know this could be possible. So I went and got a little pregnancy test. I think I got it at Dollar Tree, one of the real cheap ones. And I took a pregnancy test. I took the test, and I remember I called my aunt, but I don't remember if I called her before I took the test and told her I was going to take it, or I called her after. I'm pretty sure I called her after. I'm trying to think back. I remember standing in the bathroom and staring at the pregnancy test. Let's just say I called her after, because I'm pretty sure that's what I did. So I took the pregnancy test, and I looked at it, and if you've never taken a pregnancy test before, sometimes the line will pop up super quickly and it'll be really dark, or sometimes it'll take a little bit to actually show up, and then sometimes it'll even be just super faint. You can hardly see the line. So I took the pregnancy test, and it was so faint, it wasn't super visible. So I remember I called my aunt, and she answered the phone. I was like, hey, I took a pregnancy test. I'm acting like this is my phone. I was like, hey, I took a pregnancy test, and it has a light pink line on it. Does that mean it's a false positive? Because I had no idea. I was a kid. I didn't know oh, it's light, maybe it's false positive or negative or whatever. And she's like, wait, there's a line? I was like, yeah. So she's like, okay, send me a picture. And I was like, okay. So I took a picture of it, and I texted it to her, and she calls me back, and I see my phone ringing, and I'm like, oh God. I started freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh. So I answered the phone. She's like, dude, you're pregnant. And I was like, what? And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm not pregnant. No. And she's like, yeah. And I was like, actually, it's so light though. Wouldn't it be dark if I was pregnant? And she was like, no, your HCG or whatever levels probably just aren't that high. So it just barely detected it. I don't know if that's actually how it works, but that's what I was told. So I was like, oh crap. Okay. Now, this was 2 days before my 17th birthday. So she's like, you need to call your doctor, tell her what's going on, and she'll confirm your pregnancy test. I was like, all right. So I get off the phone with my aunt. I call my doctor, and I was like, I need to have a pregnancy test done because I took one at home and it came back positive. So I went to the doctor's office the next day, so the day before my birthday, and I don't know why they didn't just do a quick test and tell me right then. I don't know if that's a thing or if you have to wait. I don't know. Because I remember they didn't do a urine test. They did blood testing. So they drew my blood, and she's like, okay, I'll call you back tomorrow with the results. So skip to the next day. This is my birthday. And I specifically remember looking at my phone, and my phone rings. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the doctor. And I'm at my daughter's dad's house. And I go out on the front porch, and I tell him, I'm like, my doctor's calling. And I think he knew, don't come outside. I need a minute, because he stayed inside. And I swear that boy had his ear, on the door, eavesdropping. Because when I tell you, the second I got off the phone with the doctor, he come busting through the door to hear what she said. It was crazy. But anyway, so I go on the porch, and she's like, I answer the phone. She's like, hey, I just want to let you know we got your results. And I was like, okay. And my heart starts pounding, because I knew, I just knew. She's like, okay, well, you're pregnant. And I was like,
oh my
gosh. And
gosh!
she's like, yeah, it's gonna be okay. I was like, okay. I love my doctor. I wish she never moved away. She moved, so she's not my doctor anymore, unfortunately, but I loved her. And she's like, happy birthday. And I was like, yeah, thanks. And she's like, okay, well, good luck. I was like, okay, bye. And we got off the phone, and literally the split second I hung up the phone, Aria's dad, we named her Aria, he burst through the door, and not broke it or anything, but the front door, and stood on the porch. And I was like, I didn't even know what to say. I didn't have anything planned out of what I was gonna say or anything like this. In my head, I had pictured if I was pregnant, I want to do a cute little gift bag and surprise him. But in the moment, you just are oh my gosh. So he came outside, and I was like, I just looked at him, and I was like, I'm pregnant. And I didn't really even think about what his reaction was going to be, because he obviously knew I thought I was pregnant, and I thought he was going to be nervous or something. And he literally got a huge smile across his face when I told him I was pregnant. I just looked at him. I'm like, are you insane? Because, like, I literally, it was my birthday. I was only 17, which definitely not the youngest mom in the world, but, like, I was not ready. And he was, oh my God, how old was he? I think he was 22. He was 21 or 22 at this time. I'm pretty sure he was 22. So I was 17, he was 22. And I called my aunt. I was like, hey, the doctor just called me and she said I'm pregnant. And she was like, oh my gosh. Which my aunt was like the first person I told, because like my aunt was my best friend growing up. And I had also told my grandma. And then once the doctor called and told me, I actually went over to her house and I was like, hey, like, I'm pregnant. Oh, actually, you know what? That's a lie. Before the doctor even confirmed it, I went over to my grandma and I had told my dad too. Actually, that's funny. I did not tell my dad. I told my grandma. I went over to her house after I took the test and I was like, hey, like, I took a pregnancy test and it came back positive. And she was like, okay. And she was just like, my grandma was just like, I think she was more worried about, like, what are you gonna do? Like, so my grandma got married at 15 and she had 4 kids, and just her whole life, everything, she did it super young. So I think that made her nervous for me. Like, she never said that, but I think looking back, she was just like, oh my gosh, what is she gonna do? I mean, obviously she wasn't like, get rid of the baby or anything. Like, if I tried to do that, she would have kicked my ass. But she was like super sweet about it, and she's like, okay, you got to tell your dad, because we went and sat in her bedroom. I was at her house, and I told her, I was like, I need to talk to you. And my dad was at the house, and my sister, actually, I don't know if my sister was there. I don't remember. But my dad and my grandma was there, and I was like, I need to talk to you. So I had her go in the back bedroom with me, and I told her, like, the pregnancy test was positive, and we just sat there for a minute, and I started, like, crying, and I was like, I just didn't know what to say. I was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I mean, I knew I was going to keep the baby. Like, that was never a question for me. And so she was like, okay, you have to tell your dad. And I was like, no, I'm not. Like, I knew my dad. I didn't know what his reaction was going to be. Like, I knew he wasn't going to be, like, screaming or telling me to get rid of the baby or anything. But I thought he was going to be like, are you effing kidding me? Or something. Like, I thought he was going to I thought he was going to be mad that I let it happen, you know? And I told my grandma, I was like, I'm not telling him, you tell him. So she was like, okay. So we went out in the hallway. That's the way my grandma's house was set up. You go out in the hallway and it connects to the living room, and her couch was like right there. And she's like, Brian, which is my dad. He was like, what? And she's like, come here. And he was like, what? Like, why aren't you guys coming over here? And he like walked over there, and she's like, Brandy's pregnant. And my dad looked at me. He's like, what? And I was like, I specifically remember this because my dad makes fun of me to this day about it. I looked at him and I was like, I'm having a Mexican baby. And he's like, what? And I was like, I'm pregnant. And he was like, he stopped for a second and he like took a breath and shook his head, and he was like, okay. And I didn't say anything, and I was like, what do you mean, okay? And he was like, well, you're pregnant. Like, I don't know what else you want me to say. There's nothing we can do about it. You're having a baby. And I was like, okay. And then so, yeah, that's how I found out I was pregnant. Which obviously Aria's dad and I didn't stay together. But, I mean, she still sees him. She lives with him a week and me a week, so we share her. Yeah, and it was funny how we actually picked out her name. Like I said, I was 17. So I used to watch Pretty Little Liars. Like, that was my favorite show. Her dad and I would actually watch it together. And he would legit get mad at me if I watched it without him. And I'm like, it's a girl show. Like, get over it. But I told him, I was like, I really like the name Aria. And he knew where I got the name from. So, of course, when I told him I like the name, he's like, really? And I was like, yeah, like, it's actually cute. And I thought he was, like, gonna maybe, like, think about it. And then we'd talk about it. Because at this point, we were still together. And then he didn't even talk to me about it. He just went and told everyone we're naming her Aria. So he must have liked the name too. And then like several months later, we didn't have a middle name picked out quite yet. And this was right before she was born. So at this point, we're already broken up. And I remember I was sitting in my bed and he called me. He's like, hey. And I was like, what? And he was like, I really want her middle name to be Isabella. Because he wanted her name to be Mia. And I was like, no. So if you have a baby named Mia or your name's Mia, nothing against you. That just wasn't going to be my kid's name. So I was like, no, I'm not naming my kid Mia Isabella. Sorry, that's not my baby's name. And so since I said no to Mia, he did Aria. And he's like, I really want her name to be Isabella. And I was like, no, sorry. Because he's Mexican. So when he says it, it sounds all like fancy. And when I say Isabella, it sounds like basic white girl, like Isabella. Like, what? And then, so he's like, okay, either Isabella or Sky. And I was like, I already suggested Sky and you said no. And he's like, well, I've been thinking about it. So either Isabella, which I really want, or Sky. And I was like, okay, her middle name can be Sky. And he was like, okay, fine. So we did Aria Sky. And then that was how we got her name picked out too. So I'll post a picture of her because she's like the cutest little thing ever. And her birthday is in July and she'll be 9 this year, which is insane. I can't believe it. But she's so sweet. I love her. She's like my best friend. So yeah, she's actually at her dad's this week. And today's Thursday, so she comes home tomorrow. I'm so excited. But okay, I'm going to get out of my car and go upstairs, but I just wanted to share that story with you guys. And if any of y'all are young moms or pregnant right now, then comment below and let me know y'all's experience, because that would be kind of cool to get to know other moms that have kids around the age I did, because it's so hard, like getting Aria to be able to like not really have friends, like she's great at making friends, but being able to like go and do stuff with them outside of school, because having her so young, I don't know any of her friends' parents, because it's not like I went to high school with them or anything, and like I'm sure her dad maybe went to high school with some of her friends' parents, but he doesn't like tell me, so I don't know. And she's always like, I want to go do this with this person, I want to go stay at this person's house. I'm like, Aria, baby, I can't just walk up to somebody's car at school pickup line and tap on the window and be like, hey, can my kid ride with you? I don't know you, but can my kid come over, So it's kind of, that's been like one of the main things I think, having her so young, is that her friends' parents are all older than me, so I don't know them, And I'm sorry, but if I can't pick you out of a lineup, my kid's not going to your house. It's just not going to happen. So that's been one of the main things. But yeah, let me know if you guys had any similar experiences or how you found out you were pregnant. Anyways, please hit the like button and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Aria will be 9 this year. So it was like almost 10 years ago, which it just feels insane to even say that. I cannot believe it's been that long. That is so crazy. But, and like, I feel like everyone says like, oh, your kids grow up so fast, don't blink. Literally don't freaking blink. It's crazy.